In this video, I'm going to be talking about unity consciousness. Now, I'm sure you've heard people say things like, we are all one and everything is interconnected. And in this video, I'm going to be explaining exactly what that means because I've heard that a lot. I used to hear it all the time growing up, and I didn't really know exactly what it meant because my experience was everything is separate. Like, there's me, there's you, there's that object. There's like all these separate things that are not me. So how can everything be one, especially if I'm experiencing distance, I'm experiencing separation? Like, what in the world does this whole concept of oneness, of unity of being, of interconnectedness even mean? And when I started meditating and I began to experience myself not as the body, not as the mind, not as my thoughts, which up until that point I had been solely identifying as just this body, this mind, and this ego. But through meditation, I realized that I was not any of those things. I was what is aware of those things, pure consciousness, pure being. And that is the true self. And as I begin to experience that and know my true self as that pure witness, as that pure consciousness, as that pure being, then something really profound happened to me. I begin to realize that this true self, this pure consciousness, is infinite. And infinite means not finite, and finite means there's a beginning and there's an end. And there's some kind of boundary or line that determines what it is and what it's not. But what I started to notice about this true self, this awareness, was that it's boundless, it's limitless, it is everything and nothing. And so that's unity consciousness. So really, part one is discovering the true self, which is the you behind the you, is what I said in my last video. It's the you that's aware of you. It's the you that has not changed. All throughout the years, your body has changed, your mind has changed, your thoughts have changed, your circumstances have changed, your outer environment has changed, but there's been an essence, an awareness of who you really are that has absolutely not changed. It's been the same. And that is the awareness. That is the pure consciousness that I keep talking about. That is who you really are. And again, that the you behind the you, the true self, the real self, is infinite. You can't locate it. Try to locate it. You can't. We think it's like in our head, but it's not, because as soon as we locate it, as soon as we try to pinpoint this awareness, then we are aware of that pinpoint and of that location that we're trying to box it into. So again, you can't do it because it is infinite. It's beyond any kind of boundaries or any kind of limitations or any kind of time. It's beyond time and space. There is no beginning and there's no end to it. It's eternal and it's ever present. And when I say that word eternal, I don't mean a time that starts, that goes on forever and ever and ever. I mean timelessness. I mean beyond time itself. That is the true self. So Jesus says something in the Gospel of Thomas where he says that the kingdom of heaven is within you and all around you. And so discovering your true self, the you that is beyond the body and the mind, is discovering the kingdom of heaven within you. But it doesn't end there. In fact, this is the beginning. This is just part one. Because once we go within and discover our true self as consciousness, as awareness, as pure being, then something profound happens. We are transformed from the inside out, and then we begin to discover and experience this same awareness in everyone and everything. And we see consciousness as fundamental. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is I grew up believing that consciousness was something that was coming out of the universe or coming from matter or coming from the mind. But when I say consciousness is fundamental, what I mean by that is that it's the other way around. Matter, the material world, the universe, all these objects that we think are solid objects are actually coming from consciousness. They're arising within consciousness. So let's talk about that a little more. Let's talk about unity consciousness. Let's talk about the unity of being, because this is ultimate reality. This is the greatest truth. This is the ultimate truth. So a few centuries ago, scientists, physicists were really interested in what matter, what these solid objects that we think are solid really are. And when they began to study, what they realized, what they found out was that these objects, matter, is not as solid as they thought. And if we take matter, if we take any object and break it down, we find that it can be broken up into molecules. And then if we go beyond that, it's atoms. And then for a long time, the scientists thought that atoms was the smallest, that atoms was everything, that you couldn't go beyond atoms. But then they kept going, and they realized that there were electrons and neutrons and protons. And then they went beyond that, and smaller and smaller and smaller particles. Same thing with the forces of the universe. They started studying the forces, and they started breaking down the forces to smaller and smaller and smaller. And so matter, all the particles of the universe, the forces of the universe were broken down. They went deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And what they discovered, and this is quantum mechanics, is that at the deepest level, it's not solid. It's actually energy. It's a field of energy. It's the unified field. And what they discovered was that everything is arising, is coming out, coming from this infinite sea of energy. And there is no separation in this infinite sea of energy. Everything is one. Everything is interconnected. And all these different objects that we think are solid objects are just energy and vibration at different levels. And we perceive it through the finite mind. We perceive these objects, these things, through our five senses. And so they take on certain forms and appearances, and we believe them to be definite, solid objects. But the reality of it is that everything is energy. And this energy is holding all things together as one. It's interconnected. It's a sea of energy. And so all the things that are arising from the sea are like the waves. But the waves of the ocean are not separate, right? They're all part of the one, of the whole. And it's the same thing with everything in the universe. All the forces of the universe, all the particles of the universe are not separate entities. They are part of one. They are part of the whole. They are part of the infinite sea of this unified field. Now, that's matter. But let's talk about mind. Let's talk about consciousness. And like I said earlier, when I started meditating, what happened was when I first started meditating, I was totally aware of my body, of what was going on around me, and I would get distracted a lot. And so it was really hard for me to get into these deep meditative states. And then eventually I progressed a little bit, but for a long time I couldn't get past the thoughts in my head and the voice in my head, and they were just so distracting. So I quit meditating for a few months, and then I got back into it and I kept trying. And eventually, as I tried out different techniques and methods and mantras, and those really helped. And what I realized was when you're meditating, especially when you're first starting out, it really helps to have one object of focus. One object, one primary object where you can really focus your mind. And when you do that and you make that the most important part of your meditation, then all these other thoughts and distractions outside of that primary object begin to fade away. And the longer you do that, what eventually happens is that even that primary object, and it can literally be an object that you're looking at, or it can be a mantra, or it can be following your breath, or it can be whatever you want. But what happens is the longer you do that, as these distracting thoughts around the primary object during your meditation fade away, then eventually that primary object, that one thing, begins to kind of fade away, and you enter into a sacred stillness. And in that sacred stillness, there is no thought. It's emptiness. It's nothingness. It is pure awareness. It's not even really a state that you're experiencing. It's just awareness itself. And awareness is who we really are. It's the true self. It's pure consciousness, pure being. I use consciousness, awareness, and being synonymously. It's the same term for me. But you experience that at the fullest level. And that awareness is consciousness, is the same field. It's the same unified field that is discovered when matter is broken down to the smallest level possible, when matter is broken down all the way into the unified field that I just talked about. It's the same unified field. And that is what it really means to say everything is one. That is what it really means to say everything is interconnected, because everything really is. Although we can't perceive it, although our finite minds are telling us the total opposite of that, and we're looking around and we're saying, hey, I'm this separate self, I'm this entity, I'm this egoic self, and there's all these other things that are outside of me, and I'm the subject, and those are the objects, and that's not me, and that's not me. And what happens with that is we believe that, and it's part of this experience that we're having, but there is a reality beyond our five senses, and you can't know that, you can't experience it until you experience it, until you know it. And that comes through meditation. That comes through some kind of contemplative practice where you get into that stillness, you get into that silence of no thought, and you are literally experiencing yourself as consciousness itself, which is the deepest fundamental truth of existence, of reality. Now, when you begin to experience this unity consciousness and you see that, okay, the whole line, the whole boundary between subject and object, inner world and outer world, is an illusion, what can happen is it can feel different at first. It's something that is, and this is the part that I think people complicate. This is the part that people get kind of confused on, because it's not like when you experience this, it's not like everything's just one big blob, of oneness. Because if you think about the ocean, like I mentioned earlier, there's waves, and each wave is unique, and each wave is doing its thing. And some waves are big, some waves are small, some waves are closer to the shore, some are farther out into the sea. But beyond the waves, if you go beneath the waves, there's oneness, there's one ocean. But we are experiencing this world, this reality, as a wave arising from this unified field of consciousness. And we see other waves that are way over there, so we think, and we say, look at that separate wave. That wave is not me, and I'm not that wave, and there's this distance, and there's this separation. And that's what life is like when we're living from living from the illusion of separation. In Hinduism, they call it Maya. Maya is the illusion of separateness. That ultimate reality is separation, which is not ultimate reality, but that's what Maya, that's what the illusion of separation leads us to believe. And so, but again, going back to the ocean, using that metaphor, we arise from the ocean, from the unified field of consciousness, and we kind of look around as a wave that's arising, and we think that we are a separate wave. But how do we move past that? Well, we transcend, we go beyond. And as we begin to sink back into the ocean, what happens? Well, we realize that that wave that we thought was way over there, that was separate and distant from us, is actually one with us. It's one ocean. That is the deepest fundamental truth of reality. There is no separation. There is no one wave's over there and there's another wave and they're completely different and they're completely separate. No, the deepest truth is that they're one. And so, but what tends to happen, and I think this tends to happen when people start to experience part one of the kingdom of heaven being within as just this witness, as the awareness. What happens is people will say that the witness, the awareness feels it feels detached, it feels dry, it feels boring, it feels, it feels lonely. And that can certainly be the case. But part two of experiencing the kingdom of heaven all around you as this unified field of consciousness, of unity consciousness, what that does is that introduces love. And what I mean by that is love is the recognition, it's the realization of ultimate reality, and ultimate reality is the unity of being. And so what we think love is, when we experience love, whether it's with love for family or love for friends or love for like a romantic love or love for truth, love can come in different expressions. But ultimately love, when we are experiencing love in whatever way we are experiencing love, what it really is, love is just a word. What it really is the realization and the celebration of unity consciousness, of oneness. There is no separation. And that's why love feels like home. It feels like it's something we've always known. It feels like it's the truth, the deepest truth of our being. Because it is. Because unity consciousness is ultimate reality. It's who we really are. We are infinite. And what does infinite mean? It means that there's no boundary, there's no limitations on it. It's unbounded. It is everything and nothing. And so everything that we're witnessing, that we are aware of, is arising from this unified field of consciousness. And this unified field of consciousness at the deepest level is who we really are. And we know that, we experience that from meditation, from going within, from transcending, and knowing thyself as the one, as the being itself, not a being, but being itself. There's only one being, there's only one consciousness, there's only one awareness, there's one spirit, and we are all waves that are arising from that one infinite ocean of being, of awareness, of existence, of whatever you want to call it. And so Jesus says, love your neighbor as yourself. And when I used to hear that, I thought it meant that I should be loving my neighbor like I love myself, but he doesn't say that. He says, love your neighbor as yourself. Loving your neighbor as yourself is the recognition that at the deepest level, your neighbor is yourself. You are one with your neighbor and with everyone and everything, because it's all arising from the one consciousness, from the infinite sea of existence. That everything, all the forces and all the so-called particles in the universe are arising from and one with. So that's the amazing thing about that. And then I think about these other sayings like, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Well, why is that? Again, that's unity consciousness. It's the awareness that we are literally at the deepest fundamental level all one. And what we do to others, we are doing to ourselves. Imagine how we would live our lives, how we would treat people, how we would treat the earth if we were aware of that, if we were conscious of this unity of being, that there's only one being. It's not that there's these separate beings, these separate entities. No, there's one being, and we all live and move and have our being in this one being. And if we were aware of this, if we live from this, then think about how incredible that would be. Think about the love. Think about the union, the compassion, the kindness. I mean, you talk about a new earth. That sounds like a new earth to me. This is the kingdom of heaven all around us and within us. And once we experience this, again, that line between the inner and the outer begins to fade away. And we realize that it's all one. Now, Ram Dass used to say loving awareness for unity consciousness. And I really like that. That really resonates with me because, again, sometimes the witness, sometimes this I amness, that sense of the infinite, eternal, ever-present self can feel kind of lonely, and it can kind of feel not loving. It's just the witness. It's detached from everything. But when we begin to combine unity consciousness with the witness, with the I amness, then we get this, we get love from the unity, because again, love is the recognition that all is one. So love comes into the picture, but then we still have this consciousness. We still have this witness. And so Ram Dass says loving awareness. And I love that. That resonates with me so well, because that's really what it is. And that's who we are at the deepest level. We are loving awareness, unity consciousness. That is what it is. And it's amazing. And this is not just something to believe in or have faith in. This is something that you can know and experience for yourself. And again, the best way to know it and experience it is through meditation. Meditation takes you beyond the veil. It takes you beyond Maya, the illusion of separation. It takes you beyond the thinking mind, beyond identifying as the body or the ego or as any other objects or attachments. And you begin to know yourself as the pure awareness, as the pure consciousness that is infinite, eternal, and ever-present, beyond time and space. And this is the same exact consciousness and awareness and unified field that is discovered when matter is broken down at the deepest level. It's all one. All these things that we are experiencing as the witness, as the awareness, are things that are arising. And I hate to use that word things, because they're not things. It's energy that's arising from the one unified field, which is who we really are at the deepest level. And enlightenment is not about attaining anything. It's about awakening. It's about realizing ultimate reality, which is the unity of being, oneness, that there is no separation. And that ultimately, this unity of being, this oneness, is not something that is distant or separate from you. It's actually the very essence of you. You are this oneness. You are this unity of being. You are the self, capital S, the Atman. That is who you really are. And knowing this and experiencing this will profoundly change your life. You will begin to live from who you really are, your true self, which is everything and nothing. It is the totality of everything arising from this unified field, from this infinite sea of consciousness. And that is truly amazing. So I hope you found this video helpful, informative, and insightful. And, if you have any questions, please leave them down below in the comment section. I know this was a very deep topic. I tried to make it simple because the reality of it is that it is simple. But this is something that you have to experience, that you can know for yourself. So again, if you have any questions, please leave them down below in the comment section. And if you've enjoyed this video, please leave a thumbs up at the bottom of the screen and be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. So I'll see you next time. And again, thanks for watching.